I mean, our blood's boiling as we're freezing our butts off in our homes right now because of our PG&E bill.
Speaking of which, time for my blanket. My
I
anti PG&E thing.
exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
I was wearing. I call it my Snuggie, and it's one of those wearable blanket things. It's all fluffy. I wear that at
Yeah.
night because I can't keep turning on
Oh.
my heat, and it's at 65. And when it kicks in, that means it's chilly outside. You know what I mean? But apparently, there was this idea, and we talked about this actually
Hmm.
a month or so ago, of basing your PG&E bill on your income. And our friend, former CPUC President Loretta Lynch, who joins us now, was against it. Loretta, thank you so
Hey.
much for always being available to walk us through all the BS that is PG&E.
Nikki and Kim, thanks for having me again. Happy New Year.
New Year to
Hey.
you. Yes. Okay, so I sent you this email because I saw this news report, and I guess I was kind of surprised that lawmakers might be backtracking a bit on this idea of basing our PG&E bills on our income. Now, can you just recap for people that didn't hear our last conversation what this plan really entailed? And then afterwards, I want to ask you, why do you think they're backtracking?
Sure. And I wouldn't call it backtracking. I would call it fixing a travesty
Okay,
that
good.
got stuffed in at the middle of the night. So back in June of 2022, the governor's office put in a trailer bill, which trails the budget, meaning the lawmakers are busy making the budget and looking at the numbers. And then there's this bill that then tells the agencies how to spend the money they're getting.
And there's no
And
discussion on this. There's no debate.
no,
We're
no.
not notified about this, right?
Right. So AB 205 in June of 2022 was proposed and voted within a week. It was like boom, 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 really kind of a 3-day gig where all these directions to the agencies about how to spend the budget money are given. And the governor's office put in wording that said, hey, PUC, for next year, 2023 and beyond, you PUC shall create a rate proceeding, meaning how you're going to decide which kinds of customers get what kind of electric bills, in which you shall impose a fixed rate, and you shall do it with an income graduation. You should have 3 categories of income, protecting the lowest income folks, but then you shall impose a fixed rate on the other folks. So I will say, as you all know, I'm a strong critic of the PUC, but this is actually not the PUC's fault. This is the governor and then the legislature's fault for passing this. Now, the problem is most legislators didn't even see this little, 4 sentences or 5 sentences in this 700-page bill.
Right.
Plus, there were no public hearings on it, no opportunity to comment, and no opportunity to hear from folks like me and others who would say, hey, do you see this? This is a really bad little provision in this 700-page bill. Don't do it. So it gets passed with no public hearings.
Let me ask you this question, because off the top, it sounds like it would be a good idea. Okay, I don't make a lot of money, so I'm going to be protected from these very high rates. And if it's fixed, then I know what's coming. I'm not going to be surprised every month that my bill's going to go up. So explain how this little part in this trailer bill could go so wrong, because the reporting, and you told us also, you could be making less than rich people, yet paying more for your PG&E. How the heck does that happen?
How does it work? So we already have programs to protect low-income people. If you make 250% of the poverty level, which is about $60,000 for a family of 4, it actually might be more than that now, then you can get 30% off your electric bill. You just sign up for the CARE, or what's called the FARA program. And so you already have an opportunity to cut your bill and have that permanent if you have essentially the same income that would qualify you for healthy families, for discounted health care. So we already have those programs, and those programs work, and they do protect lower income Californians, not just people at the poverty level, but people at 250% of the poverty level.
And is that, I'm thinking of retired people. So if they have a retirement fund that they tap into to make ends meet, pay their bills, Is that calculated for them? Like, or is it like a
It,
worker
it,
income
it's an income level that
from
if you fall
anything?
below the income in your annual income,
Okay.
then you get protected. If you don't, then you don't get protected. But
Okay.
understand, AB 205 isn't protecting low income people. It's creating a permanent fixed charge, not rate. So that just means they're going to say, hey, low income people only have to pay, let's say, $10 a month in this fixed charge, but they also have to pay all the other unwarranted and unjust charges that PG&E is slathering on. So
Mm.
it's really an addition, not a max. Isn't that crazy?
So what are
AB
the other
205
things? What
has
are the other
nothing
things?
about limiting rates,
Right.
nothing in that.
Who put this in? Who's
Governor.
responsible?
Well, so my understanding is that this language came from the governor's office. It was put into this budget trailer bill at the very end of the budget process, and there were no public hearings. There was really very little analysis. Some of even the staff committee analysis didn't mention this. It was only when it got much farther along to the floor of the Senate and the Assembly did the staff committee analysis say, hey, oh, and there's an income graduated fixed charge. Well, who even knows what those words mean when they're voting on a bunch of stuff in the middle of the night?
Right.
So
And
wait,
so it
okay.
got put in by the legislature in 2022. And the deal is now that the PUC has a proceeding and there are proposals from the utilities to impose somewhere between $40 and $60 more a month. So that's $500 to $700 more a month on your bill, more
A
for
month.
anybody who earns more than $60,000. A family who earns more than $60,000, right?
Mhm.
That's just crazy. So the legislators, not surprisingly, are hearing from people like us, and they say, wow, I don't remember voting on that gig. And so very courageously, Assemblymember Jackie Irwin, who did vote on that bill and didn't understand that these little sentences were in it, said,
Mhm.
hey, we made a mistake. Let's reverse it.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not a backtracking. It's a, hey, look at what little piece of, was buried in this bill. Let's get it out of the law.
And let me just make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. And I'm glad that it's not going to happen. But when you're saying there's a fixed rate on top of all of the other fees. So if I look at my bill right now before the fixed, it's my bill plus $10 or whatever. Is that what I'm talking about? Like what is
That's right.
the average amount of fees and nonsense that's already on my bill that we would still have to pay for if something like this did come to fruition?
Well, you'd have to pay for all the power that you use, right?
At
So
the
if
same
you use a
rates.
lot of power at the same rates as now, well, they might adjust that down a teeny bit, but it's never going to compensate
That
for the
doesn't make any
larger fixed
sense
rate.
then. They weren't doing anything for us. They weren't
Well,
literally doing anything for us at all. That's just, we want to, I don't know. It just kind of blows my mind, Loretta, that they're trying to say, oh, they're selling it like your bill's going to be $10, but it's really just another charge.
it's an extra charge on your
Oh
bill.
my God.
And the scary thing is it's an extra charge, but it's also a violation of your privacy. Because if this is an income
Right.
based fixed rate, then they have to know what everybody's income is. And do you want PG&E or the PUC?
No.
You want to report your income to those guys? Are you
No.
kidding me?
God,
Frickin'
no.
frack?
So what's now then? Okay, go ahead, Kim.
I
No,
was just
go
going to
ahead.
say, so we know it came from the governor's office. Did it come from the governor himself? Did it come from a staffer? Do we know why they put it in
Who's
there?
lobbying for this?
Who did it?
Loretta?
And is it because like does it have to do with PG&E wanting it to be on there, donating money to the governor? I mean, my mind goes to the dark place.
Of course.
Who and why?
I don't know who specifically did it, but you know who wanted it. Follow the money. The utilities will make more money. And so when you follow the money, who wants it? The utilities want it because if they can make more money, then they will make more money.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so they have lots of reasons. Oh, we have this charge and that should be spread across customer classes. Oh, rates are high and poor people shouldn't pay so much. I agree. Rates are high and poor people shouldn't pay so much. So get the rates down.
Yes.
Don't have a circular firing squad where poor people are shooting at solar people and solar people are shooting at industrial customers. Everybody who says, hey, don't throw that big new charge on me. Right? What we need to do is look at this overflowing bucket of unwarranted costs and get them down to a reasonable level. And just one factoid, poor people in PG&E territory, and actually all the private utilities territory, they get a 30% rate reduction. They are still paying more than the average customer in SMUD in Sacramento.
Wow.
So the
That is
average customer's
crazy.
bill is less than the low income discount across the board across California. That shows you the disparity in just how high the private utilities rates are.
I never understand. I know we mention this every single time. I just never understand, and still to this day will not understand why Governor Newsom is such a failure on this issue. I understand it's lobbying and it's big donors, and he's being called out for that. But it's not only PG&E, Loretta. I live in San Jose. I just got a letter that CPUC is going to be considering raising the rates for my water. Now, has there ever been a no from the CPUC? Do we have a list of all the no's they've ever given to raising our rates? Because I kind of feel like that list would be very small, if not never. I mean, do they ever say no?
Well, I'll tell you, the 5.5 years that I was at the PUC, we said no a lot. And the utilities really didn't like that because every time we said no, it was profits out of their pockets. And so they're now very intent on making sure that they get commissioners who say yes all the time to everything they ask for. And so then they ask for the sun, the stars, and the moon because
And
they
they
know
get
they
it.
won't get turned down. Or they might not get all the stars, but they're still going to get the sun and the moon. It's crazy. And that's the reason why California's rates are the second highest rates in the nation.
Behind who?
Hawaii, which is an island, and they have to truck everything in.
Which
there's
is
a reason.
understandable, right?
Exactly, there's a
Yeah,
reason.
yeah.
So, whatever happened? I felt like there were a lot of headlines about breaking up PG&E. Right? What happened with that? I mean, it seemed like it was nonstop conversation. Cities wanting, like San Jose, wanting to create their own. What's happening with that?
Well, some cities are doing a very clever thing, like San Jose. San Jose has created a city utility not to take over PG&E, but essentially to compete with PG&E. So whenever there's a new development, think about all those farms that go to housing and retail, right? That's new development. Those developers have to put in utilities to serve the new houses. Well, usually what happens is the developers turn all that infrastructure over to PG&E to run. And the city of San Jose says, no, turn it over to us. We'll run it.
Yeah.
And so they are creating these little pockets of municipal utility governance. And then ideally, they will stitch those pockets together if some changes in the law happen. The problem, of course, is in 2020, when PG&E was at its worst, it was bankrupt and creating wildfires all over the place. The legislature wanted to do something. And what they did was say to PG&E, you're a bad dog. And if you do this more, we're going to take you over. The PUC will determine whether or not you should be taken over, but taken over to form another private company.
No.
They're basically saying, you board, we're going to kick you out and put in a new board that will be appointed by the state, but it'll still be a private company. And that doesn't work in terms of our legal structure. It needs to be a public company for us to get rid of the profits, for us to get rid of the profit incentives, and for us to get rid of the folks who don't care about maintaining the system and running it for the people, but run it for the shareholders. So as long as you got shareholders, you got a problem.
What do you think if and when, because he's not going to be there forever, Newsom's out of the picture? Do you think the next governor is going to make an improvement here? I mean, what do we need to look for in the next person that wants to be the governor of California?
Well, number one, repeal SB 250, which said we're going to, if we ever do take over PG&E, we'll make another corporation, private corporation, and not a public one. But two, let's make sure the next governor appoints PUC commissioners who care about the people and not the profits and in the for-profit utilities. And we will really have a choice. There are a ton of folks running for governor. So what's their stand on high rates? How specifically would they cut the rate? Who would they protect? And whose ox would they gore? Right?
I just feel like there's a system in place, and PG&E gives money to all these candidates.
Yes.
And they're probably, when it comes to this issue, carbon copies of each other, all with their hand out, taking money from the utilities. And maybe that's not true, but it just feels like we're never going to get out of under the thumb of PG&E.
Well, Kim, I agree. It's pretty discouraging in general because it is true that most governors have been in the past pro-utility. But I want to keep hope alive, as Jon Stewart used to say, even if it's false hope, let's keep hope alive and let's hold the new candidates' feet, let's make them accountable. on the campaign trail by asking them at citizen forums, hey, what specifically are you going to do? Will you support public power?
Yeah.
There is an effort in San Diego for the city of San Diego to take over SDG&E's, take it over, buy it out, essentially. And that's going to be on the ballot as a citizen initiative. Where do the gubernatorial candidates stand on that? Yeah. Where do they stand on San Jose's effort to protect their people with a San Jose municipal utility?
I know Eleni Kounalakis, the lieutenant governor, is planning on running for governor. Right. I kind of feel like she might be in the same bed as Governor Newsom, though, when it comes to something like PG&E. Do you have any inkling of who or what kind of candidate or what candidate would hold PG&E and the CPU's feet to the fire?
I'm so busy fighting these current fights on the income graduated tax and trying to get all these unwarranted costs down. I haven't talked to the gubernatorial candidates about energy.
Well, whoever you endorse, Loretta, you're going to have to let us know when you do, because we need people like you that can see through the BS and the lobbying BS that's obviously going to be happening. I mean, I just want PG&E to go away. I really do. As far as a private company, when we don't have an option, we don't have it.
But we have to have something better. We don't want to just, kill the beast and then have chaos and anarchy. Right. And so we really do have to plan it. So I will tell you, whoever I endorse, I will endorse because they are for public power and that they will agree to concrete steps to get us out of this mess. Because frankly, our economy can't handle it. Small businesses, small commercial customers are paying some of the highest rates in the nation. They rival Hawaii's rates for no good reason. We're certainly not safer or more reliable or cleaner. The utilities are just making more profit off of folks. So they're making profit off of you and me, California's families, but they're also making profit off of agricultural customers, highest rate in the continental United States for agriculture. What does that mean when California is so dependent on agriculture as a key part of our economy? It's just ridiculous.
When you say public power, though, a lot of people will go, oh, no, we're going to turn something public, and then they envision, what happened with the economic or the employee development department, right, with all the fraud there. Or they look at the DMV and how the computer system was outdated. And so when you look at a public power company, is it fraught with red tape and with bureaucratic, incompetencies? Or how do we make sure that if we take over our power structure, that we do it in a way that, is good for all of us instead of, maybe poor management?
Absolutely. That's why I'm saying we can't just replace something with nothing. Yeah. So what the good news is, there are government-owned electricity systems in every state in the country. So about 20% of the entire customer demand is served by public power right now across the United States. And in California, it's about 22%. And so I point to SMUD. SMUD is a public entity, but its board of directors are elected by the people. And then they have all sorts of rules about how they're supposed to run the system. So the good news is you get the profit out of it. And PG&E right now makes a 10.25% profit. But because we pay taxes, we pay their taxes on their profit, we would be saving 16 to 17 cents out of every ratepayer dollar right off the bat if we went from private to public. Yeah. And that's 16 to 17 cents that we could use to maintain the system or give back to the ratepayers. Yeah. But then there's all these other, let's just say, bloated costs of the for-profit system that we could get down. So I really think we could save about 30 cents out of every dollar, maybe even more, if we went to public systems. And I'm not saying public systems are perfect. Yeah. They're just a whole heck of a lot better than the private system, where PG&E proposes undergrounding lines so that they can make more profit off of lines, even when the Natural Resources Agency calls them out and says, hey, your underground line proposal will underground non-priority lines, and you're going to underground lines in the areas where there is no high fire threat risk. So instead of going in and fixing where it's most likely to have fires, they want to go in and underground lines that will make them the most money.
And nobody's watching them. Yeah. And nobody's watching it. And the governor is a failure on this. Now, when we're talking about PG&E, that's one thing. I'm having more people ask about the water rates. I feel like there's a huge difference in what I support, because with PG&E, yes, I'm frustrated. It's the heat, it's the power. With water, I'm ingesting that. I want to make sure that it's up to snuff, right? That they're doing all the things to keep it clean and safe. Uh, what do you think about water rates going up? I mean, is it necessary? Is it along the same lines as PG&E?
Well, there we have a really good example of public agencies doing a good job. About 80% of water agencies are public today in California. So in San Francisco, the San Francisco Department of Water and Power, they are the ones who provide us water. And in Oakland and in Berkeley, that's a public water agency in East Bay Mud. And those guys have high standards and high quality and good results for a lower price than the privates. So why we even allow private water companies to exist for this essential public good is beyond me. Because I'll tell you, the private water companies that I regulated, which are probably the private water companies that provide you water right now, Nikki,
Yep.
Cut corners all the time in service of profit.
And that doesn't make me feel good, because again, I'm drinking this water, and I'm doing that. Yeah. SF Tesla, San Jose is going from an average of $107 in 2025 to $131 in 2027. It's a lot. It's a lot. And that's just average. I mean, I don't feel like I use that much water, although now I have teenagers who don't seem to want to get the hell out of the bathroom. But again, it's one of these things that we need. And where else am I supposed to go to get the service? And there's no option. And so they've got me. They have me. What am I supposed to do?
Well, I'd complain to your legislator to take over Cal-Am or American Water, whoever your water company is.
Water, yeah.
But also there again, the PUC is the one that approves those rate increases. Just like with the private utilities, with the private water companies, we're right back at our favorite rogue regulatory agency, the PUC. So there, I would be asking each gubernatorial candidate who comes on your show, what are you going to do about private water companies and their rates? And what are you going to do about appointing PUC commissioners who have a demonstrated commitment to protect the consumer and the environment?
Yeah. And also, with water, sometimes we can serve and then we're dinged on the other side because they didn't get our money. It's as if we can't win for lose. It sucks. And with the fixed rate, we wouldn't have even been able to lower that rate because it would have been fixed if it did go through. So we're screwed.
Well, and so that's where we really do need to look at taking over the private water companies. And the little town of Felton, California, up in the mountains, did that. It took them about 10 years, but they municipalized their water company and wrested control back from American Water. And you have to tip your hat to Felton, and we should do more of the same.
Absolutely.
I saw a story today about more Californians at risk of losing their landlines. I don't know if you saw this one, but this is AT&T required to provide the service as the states, they call it the carrier of last resort. They're the only one left doing the landline service, but the company wants to end it. They don't want to have to do this anymore, so they sent an application to state regulators, your favorite agency. If approved, no one would have to offer a basic plan in a specified area, though it's possible another carrier could come forward and end up doing it. The forums start next week with customers giving feedback. Maybe so many people don't have landlines anymore that we just don't care, but it's a big deal for those people who depend on their landlines for that service.
Oh, absolutely. So older folks and lower income folks are the ones who have landlines, or people who don't care about the cost. I have a landline still, as well as my cell phone, for safety reasons, because when there's an earthquake, the thing that's going to work is your landline, not your cell phone. Cell phone service will be disrupted in emergencies a whole lot more than the landline service.
Right.
But it is a fallacy to think that some other company is going to come in and take over the landline service. And the reason is AT&T owns all the copper wires that go to your house. And so they are going to charge a pretty penny for anybody who wants to come in and take that over. And it's just prohibitively expensive to go recreate the landline wire, they're an actual copper wire that's coming into your house that already exists. That's just kind of an unneeded expense. And so ultimately we will, if AT&T is allowed to just slough it off and no longer maintain it. Right now, we pay to have them maintain that really great communication service that ratepayers for the last 60 years paid to install. Why don't we just pay a little bit to maintain it, especially in earthquake country? I don't
Yes.
get it.
Exactly. A question from Phineas about the ACP Affordable Telecom Act being stopped in March, and how do we get it back? What is that?
I think that he's talking about a federal law. So I don't know what was stopped in March on the federal level, I have to say.
Okay.
But I do know that the PUC has a very hands-off approach to regulating telecommunications. But they don't have to have a hands-off approach. I never did. I went after the cable companies and tried to regulate them until finally the US Supreme Court said that states couldn't regulate cable companies. But for the longest time, we could. And why wouldn't we? So why wouldn't you use the regulatory authority you have? And I think it's because commissioners in the past have been appointed who are essentially anti-regulatory, who are against the very foundation of the mission of the agency. We need to get commissioners back who think regulation is a good thing of these essential monopoly goods like a landline service.
Well, especially since that is literally the job. Like you hired to regulate something it's in the job description. So how do we get these? How does it work that the people that are appointed to the CPUC, is it lifetime? Is there any way that us, the public, can have a say or remove them, or how does that work?
The governor appoints and the state senate confirms, and there are 5 people on the PUC, each of whom have staggered 6-year terms. So what we know is with the new governor coming up in 2027, well, actually, even in 2025, this governor will have an opportunity to appoint 2 new commissioners or reappoint 2 that are already on. And then in 2027, the new governor will have an opportunity to appoint 2 new commissioners. So they cycle through every couple years. So we have a great opportunity to change the perspective and the focus and priorities of this commission really just in the next 3 years, which is something. So why wouldn't we take that opportunity and make our voices known with the state senators who confirm them, and certainly for 2026 with the gubernatorial candidates? What kind of PUC commissioner are you going to appoint specifically, and what are you going to tell them you want?
I want more protests, Loretta. That's what I want. I want every single time that Governor Newsom is out somewhere, somebody is holding up their PG&E bill and asking them, what are you doing? I don't understand why Governor Newsom, honestly, and Kim and I feel the exact same way about this. I like him in so many other
What's
issues.
this about?
What is this about? What are you doing? Yeah, it's just, why do you think, I mean, we're upset. We talk about this. I could talk about this every freaking day, and so can everybody else. But why do you think it's not at the feet of Newsom all the time? It doesn't seem like this is even on his radar sometimes.
No one's asking about it.
No one's asking him.
And why are people saying, why did your office put this bill through?
Right.
And what is happening?
What were you thinking? Yeah.
Why is no one paying attention? Is it just us?
Well, I'll tell you, I do think that calls into your legislators work, because when I've recently been called by several legislators to explain why are the bills so high and what can we do about it, because 90% of the calls they're getting into their district and Sacramento offices are about complaining about their electric bills.
Nice.
And so keep those calls up, because the legislators at least are paying attention. As to the governor, it depends on who you hang out with. And if you're hanging out with people whose electric bill maybe $1,000, but they got a $5,000 or $6,000 square foot home, or maybe several homes, they don't even know what their electric bill is.
Yeah.
So you got to hang out with people who actually have to budget the payment of their electric bill into their monthly budget to understand what average Californians are going through.
Wow. I mean, there are people like, look, Liz, people don't know about this. I didn't until Loretta was on your show. And that's why we love having Loretta on. I mean, the whole income, just what we were starting talking about, that whole income thing. I think if you just told people we're going to base your rate on how much, and low income people, and it's just going to increase, people are like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. I'll know what it is. And then you realize, no, this is just on top of everything else that you're freaking paying, would blow people's minds. And I think, Loretta, you're absolutely right. We have to continue to call in, because I think that pressure led to them not backtracking, but just not moving forward with what would have been a travesty for so many people at a time when we're trying to manage our money. I mean, yes, the economy is turning around, but it's expensive to live in the Bay Area, and I don't need any other fees added onto my bill.
Well, and why should you pay somewhere between $200 and $600 more a month?
Oh my,
Or,
more a month.
I'm sorry, not a
More
month. $200 to $600 more a year because
Oh, a
you
year.
earn more than $60,000
Yeah.
or you earn more than $100,000. So some of the rates cuts or income cuts that they're looking at are 100 or 150,000. And if you earn more than 100,000, you will pay the same fixed charge that Mark Zuckerberg pays.
That's
And
ridiculous.
for Mark Zuckerberg, he probably doesn't even notice he's paying 600 bucks more a month. But if you earn $101,000 a year, you're going to notice if you're paying 600 bucks more a year just for no reason because the utilities asked for it and they got it.
Oh, my bill went up like almost $100 last month. Almost
Well, that's for a whole
$100.
different. That's for a whole different reason, which is the rate increase to keep the system going.
And
just
there's
so
more
you know,
coming, right?
Oh, more coming because over the last 10 years, PG&E's rates have gone up 127%. Can you believe it? More than doubled in the last 10 years. And in the last 4 years, they've gone up over 70%. So it's accelerating. And the PG&E has an 18% rate increase on the table again for this year. So they are making money hand over fist without really many controls or oversight about how they're spending that money. And people are screaming, it's going to hurt our economy versus the other states if we don't actually tackle this problem of unwarranted costs.
Exactly. And with climate change, I mean, Sandy's saying it, summers have gotten so hot in San Jose, I end up running up a huge electricity bill for my air conditioning. I remember when it wasn't so hot, we didn't need AC. San Francisco, I mean, every year now it's the same story for people that never had AC because they didn't need it. All of a sudden, they're literally dying if you're of a certain age because it's too hot. Climate change compared with higher PG&E bills is literally killing people because they can't afford it. And that's a tragedy that's on the governor's hands.
Well, Nikki, you are exactly right. It's now become a health and safety issue, whether you can afford your electric bill in the summer.
Yeah.
It is so sad. It kind of reminds me of people that, can't afford insulin, right? Now, all of a sudden we can't afford PG&E. Are you kidding me? It's so sad. And I'm so happy to always have you on. Loretta Lynch, again, the message is contact our state lawmakers, especially the people that appoint the CPUC, and really pay attention to who's running for governor. You are going to have to give us your endorsement when you make one. Because whoever you vote for, I'm voting for. I don't care.
One thing, this bill to turn around this really crazy idea of income-based rates or fixed charge is AB 1999. And so think about, wouldn't you like to have the electricity bill you had in 1999? So
there you go.
For AB 1999, and then you can play us out on Prince.
There you go. Okay.
So is that something that is that's not a done deal, right? I mean, they're still discussing it. It's going through committee. How do we support that? How do we make sure that that provision to slap on this extra fee based on our income actually passes?
So you would call your legislator and say, please vote yes on AB 1999, because AB 1999 will repeal the bad law that they made a couple years ago.
Yes, on 1999. Okay.
If it's passed and Governor Newsom, it lands on his desk, will he sign it or will he veto it because it was his office's idea in the first place?
Well, that is going to be the very sadly $1 trillion question here. And that will happen before June 30th.